Welcome back to the Marketing Measurement Matters podcast with an exciting episode. This time we have a special guest who is the marketing effectiveness lead at Google, Antonio Prada. Love the last name.
Thank you.
Maybe you want to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. First, thank you very much for having me as a guest on your podcast. And I like the acronym, by the way. That's a great acronym.
We thought about that.
Did we actually?
I'm not sure.
And yes, so my name is Antonio Prada. I'm marketing effectiveness lead at Google, and I started Google working earlier this year in January, but I have a very long history in this field. Worked at Meta, Snap, and Omnicom before. My special field is marketing mix modeling, or MMM, and in this field, I know people sometimes call it like marketing analytics, and my title as marketing effectiveness lead. Some of my colleagues, their title is media effectiveness lead, but in the end, I can basically say whenever something happens with Lift, incremental, and this is associated with ROI, this is basically when I get involved, and I have some colleagues. They work in data and measurement. They are more interested in tracking Google Analytics, etc. So they are specialists in this field, and I'm specialist in media effectiveness.
Which arguably is one of the most exciting fields in marketing measurement, I would say. At least that's also what we talk a lot about on this show. Incrementality, getting the real, true, if we can get to that, the true ROI. We had an amazing episode about that two episodes ago. So very exciting field. But maybe to take a little step back, how did you get into this field?
Yes, so I can. So basically, I'm a bit fortunate situation because at university I studied economics, and I had a focus or a minor focus on econometrics, which is like the methodological basis for marketing mix modeling. So actually, even though we call it marketing mix modeling, it's econometric modeling, but it sounds more sexy, so marketers just call it marketing mix modeling.
So they understand what it is.
Yeah. So I started in this field at university, and then around 2008, during the financial crisis, when nobody was hiring, my field got quite popular, and so I applied to media agencies in all kinds of different roles, and then they just hired me as a media effectiveness lead or a marketing science lead, even though I didn't even apply to this role. They just said, "Oh, we need you," and then they hired me, and then from there started working there for 8 to 9 years, really building MMMs the old school way, manual modeling. So a lot of stuff was happening in automated ways. Nowadays, we had to do it in manual ways. It's
like what? Like finding ad stock?
Ad stocks, and not just geometric ad stocks, but even at sometimes like hill functions or like negative exponential functions, depending on client requests. So that was really, really painful to do it.
What, the clients requested specific types of function for the ad stock to be used?
Yeah, so we had some cases in the UK where we also modeled in different markets. And then we had to do it in manual ways back then. And then also nested modeling and all this stuff. So all these things that are popular nowadays already, I mean, this has been done for many years now. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these things. And then I moved on. I had the opportunity to work on advertiser side for a brief year, which was pretty good to understand dynamics, politics, data collection, stakeholder management.
Politics and MMM, who would have thought?
Exactly.
Data collection.
And now I understand why it always takes so long to get the data. So,
what is more? Is more the politics or the data collection or the combination of both?
It's interlinked. So sometimes you have blockers from stakeholders who, on purpose, they are trying to drag it out. Sometimes it's just misunderstanding. So there are different reasons why it takes so long. Sometimes you have to go back and you have to request the data again and things like that. And then I moved to Meta. They recruited me. That was a really great, big opportunity for me. Because I also wanted to not just reproduce. I also wanted to work more in innovative ways. And at Meta, I was still in a position where I had to, I had the opportunity to consult clients, but also work in more innovative ways, like work on open source codes, work on some other projects. And then I really decided to stay in this space because like the tech world is very a great word to get access to clients, to vendors, even internationally, not just on domestic markets. And so I moved to Snap, and then now I'm at Google. So basically, it's the same world and a very similar job, but things are always a little bit different if you move from one company to another.
I mean, you mentioned that some of your colleagues are called media effectiveness analysts, and I also know that some people call it media mix modeling. What's in your view the difference? I mean, we have some thinking about it, but when should one do media mix modeling? Or should it just be called marketing mix modeling? Just to clarify that.
Yeah. So there are different views. So like, but my opinion is that it doesn't really matter. It's always like if you call it media or marketing mix modeling, because in the end, if you want to build a good model, you have to include all the variables, like control variables, all the drivers anyways. But maybe in the way how the reporting works. So maybe you go to vendor, and if they call it media mix modeling, they will still build the entire model maybe, and then just report on the media and you just pay for the media part. I don't know. There are different models out there, but in the end, we always recommend build a sound model, use all the data available, and then use this that way. And if you call it media or marketing mix modeling in the end, it doesn't really matter.
It's an MM.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an MM.
Yeah,
The acronym at least doesn't change. That's great.
You mentioned you worked at Meta at the open source modeling as well. So have you been in touch? Was Robin in place already back then, or?
Actually, yeah, I was part of the original Robin development team back then.
So you know Gu Feng also? Or?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
We all
He was on the podcast like a while ago, right?
Yeah, a while ago. Yeah, Iggy was
long
as
while.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, so we worked on it together with we have 4 people, and started working on it right before the pandemic, and then we had a lot of time during the pandemic to develop this.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was almost perfect. And it was really exciting because we were building something which was very unique, and even we didn't really know how it would land, and there were like the first time building a product, and we were just marketing science guy, not really product guys. And then you have to consider so many different things. You have to like talk to patent lawyers in California or something who are specialized in open source, and we didn't even know we had lawyers like that. So that was really exciting to work on this, and also very great that we got the sponsorship and support from VPs and etc. To work on this. Yeah.
And now, I mean, of course, now you're at Google, and Google has Meridian, as we of course all know, and Facebook has Robin, and then there's a few more like PMC marketing, and I think that's it. Orbit maybe can also be constructed as a marketing mix model or not, whatever. So there are a couple of open source models right now. Big tech, I would say, at least in the form of Meta and Google, definitely went all in on those. And there's a lot of interest also now in the industry and using these models, running these models, getting the insights out of them. So what do you think there's now this we talked about this a lot on the show, but in your view, why is there this massive interest right now on this? We talked about it previously when we were just chatting here, that even up to the C-level, people are now interested or know about marketing mix modeling, where maybe 10, 15 years ago when you started, it was many media agencies and their folks.
Yeah. So let's say when you go to Google Trends and you type in marketing mix modeling and you do a search, you can see like the curve, how the peak is around 2008, and then that's around the financial crisis. And that was when marketing mix model was kind of popular. That's when Omnicom hired me around this time. Mostly it was just the legacy brands doing MMMs, and you had the same players in the field, all the usual suspects, plus the media agencies, and they were all doing very similar work. And then over time, in the following years, after 2008, you got like other solutions like attribution, or MTA systems, which also can include MMM. And then MMM got a little bit not so popular because of these MTA systems. And everybody wanted to do MTA. The legacy brands were still doing MMM. But then several factors or some things happened, like first of all, data protection laws started, which resulted into signal loss. And then you had even some other factors like the fragmentation of media, like you have so many more digital channels now, so it's even more important to measure your impact and get it from one source maybe, instead of having so many different measurement systems. Then open source codes showed up as well, popularized this even more, and combining all of these factors, putting them all together, now we see the curve I just mentioned earlier is back to the peak. So it's really like 2008 level, but we have many more brands now. We have digital natives doing it. We have everyone is now doing MMM, or is at least interested in doing MMM. And we're getting a lot of requests from all kinds of sectors, all kinds of brands. As I mentioned, digital natives, even brands who stopped doing MM several years ago are now getting back into the business, and they even forgot the entire history. They have new people working on it in the company, and
there is something still in a drawer in the back somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. And they are like reaching out, like it's the first time for them discussing MM, even though they were doing it maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah.
I'm just trying to share this. Should I just share this? Because I think it's highly interesting, this graph that you mentioned. I can actually not check if our audience can now see it.
Isn't that similar to the graph you made at some point?
No, it's slightly different. This is a diagram, because here you mentioned this was the peak around 2008, and then it went down again. Can you guys see that as well?
Okay. Well, from here we can see it. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you mentioned it went up again with the data protection laws. But what I find extremely interesting, because this here must be around 2018 when GDPR came into being, but then it kind of went down again
because of the pandemic. No one had money.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then came the open source tools.
Yeah, probably.
Or ATT and the
iOS
update, iOS 14.5 update,
Yeah.
and you see how much more. Because I always argued that these
iOS 14.5
has a much bigger impact than GDPR.
Because I mean, in the end, that's what we talked about last week with signal engineering.
Yeah.
What Scan does is nothing else than giving you something which is like MMM. They just don't tell you what it is. But
well, I mean, it's just a hypothesis. It could also, again, like be combination of COVID and then the tracking restrictions being more important. Okay.
Yeah, but I also think it's stacked, right? It's like GDPR in 2018, then 2020 pandemic. People started realizing they need to do more with their data, and then with ATT in 2021, I think, or 22.
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it really started. I mean, and since 2023, people talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, and we don't expect it to go down again like it has last time. So I think it's just going to stay around for a while now.
Yeah, but I also think that's what I realize for a lot of customers. There's like a thought process and a mindset process, because as you said, there's a lot of people that grew up with MTA, like me, for example, as well. And then you just have to get used to it, that it's not coming back to that point, right? You have to do something else that is also working in a way that people can understand, and that's, I think, why MMM is becoming, as well as incrementality, right? Both things are becoming more important.
That's what we call it. Google, we call it or it's an industry term actually. Either it's modern measurement or triangulation.
Yeah, triangulation.
Which is like an industry term where you use.
The Holy Trinity was Facebook, or was it Google? What said that?
I think Facebook talks about a set of truth or something like
Suit
that.
of truth.
Suit of truth.
Google says triangulation. Holy Trinity is a bit outdated, maybe.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah,
Holy Trinity.
I also saw that recently somewhere.
Yeah.
But we also started talking about triangulation 21.
All right.
Yeah, and this is definitely something which we also recommend, because there's no one system you should rely on.
Not anymore.
Helps you, of course. Maybe if you're like a very static traditional legacy brand, maybe you can do a lot with but overall nowadays everything is so dynamic. You need like different measurement tools, and then ideally use them to inform each other, or at least use them to validate the tools. So that's something we definitely recommend.
And Antonio, you're working with quite a few clients, right? So you see a lot of different advertisers. And so how are they combining these methods in the wild? Because it's always easy to talk about it here in the podcast and say, like, you should be combining all the methods. And yeah, no, it makes sense. And but how are people actually doing it? I'm sure there are a few different flavors out there.
Yes, so it really is a little bit a mixed bag. So we have clients just talking about it, doing maybe one of these three things, then getting interested in maybe doing something else like geolift testing, incrementality testing, and then they, even if they do it, it's not that they just immediately start combining it, right? But then we also have clients who work with next-gen vendors, and they have somehow build it into their product offerings, and they might do it on the background for them, or they work with them together. So it's really so many different clients doing different things. It's not like 10, 15 years ago where you talk to one client and they are all doing something similar. Nowadays, you really get all the different flavors, different levels of advancement. And it's also very interesting to see that like every 10 years, how maybe the landscape changes, and clients who are maybe really advanced 10 years ago, they fall back because they do not innovate. And then you have other clients moving forward, and they are maybe positioned, they're in a better position suddenly, because it's just something that keeps continuously changing. You always need to be up to date.
And then that's such an interesting point, because we also seen this. I mean, we've been in the space for also not a decade or so.
Almost, yeah.
And you maybe saw some really advanced digital MTA or data-driven MTA users, and then they cannot get rid of it mentally. So they cannot move over to a phase where MMM might also be the the view that you should include. And then they just get stuck on this data-driven multi-touch attribution view. Not to say that they should completely disregard it, but they just cannot, make that jump into a more sophisticated, holistic system. But maybe one question: Do you have one? Because again, triangulation is used so broadly, and it's really tough to understand what it actually entails. And there is not this one definition, or at least to my knowledge, I don't know if you think different, where you could say this approach is triangulation, this approach is not triangulation. Do you have like a specific use case where one of the clients or advertisers that you work with really gained insights that were extremely valuable through combining methods? And I'm aware that it might be confidential, but it would be really interesting to learn, like, where was a specific thing that helped an advertiser enormously. And I'm also aware of and I really love that was it the modern measurement playbook that Google published, I think,
1.5 years ago.
Like any specific use case, I think that would be extremely valuable for the audience if something comes into your mind.
So yes, there are some use cases, but of course, I cannot really talk about individual cases. And many of them also are in the US or in the UK in this regard, but they do exist. But it really depends on, you really have to be like lean in, you have to be committed doing this, and then you have to have all the systems in place individually before you start using them to validate or calibrate. For instance, even if you're like reluctant to calibrate, you might use it to do like a qualitative calibration, which is the validation. So you really just use the results from one system, which could be, maybe it's an attribution, or maybe you were just doing several geolift tests, and then you use the results you created for this geolift test in this period, and then you compare it to the MMM results, incrementality results in the other period, and then you shouldn't do it like rely on it if you only do one test, but if you do multiple tests over time for different channels, then you might maybe get more confident and say, hey, they kind of overlap. They will not perfectly overlap, but in some ways, and then you get more confident that your MMM, for example, actually makes sense. And otherwise, you can also use it if you're really confident to calibrate the MMM. Just use these results to calibrate, because we know that MMM is an average over several years. And if you have some more information coming in, more from the gold standard test, which is the GeoLift test, then you can use it to calibrate it.
Which actually brings us to another super important topic that we also said in the announcement of this event that we were going to discuss. So we have to discuss it. Which is marketing mix modeling and validation. I think I assume maybe when you started, at least when I started, people were still pretty much focused on evaluating MMMs by looking at the in-sample fit, maybe the R squared. That's pretty much an industry standard metric. Everyone's looking at that. And then maybe if they're a tiny bit more advanced, they had a look at, how well can this model predict into the future? Maybe the last 3 months of the data or something like that, holdout set. And then that was it. And then only since recently, there like more advanced ways of evaluating MMMs have been proposed, which is like maybe natural. But in your view, also looking back, how has this evolved? What is a good way these days to validate, to evaluate, to judge the quality of a marketing mix model?
Yes, this is a very popular topic currently, getting also a lot of requests from advertisers. And we think one reason for this is because there's a lot of investment going in. C-level is getting involved. They are really pushing. They are not really just happy with an R squared. They want more validation.
Because they don't understand that as well.
As you're correct, like in more recently, it was more based on statistical analysis, like the typical statistical indicators to use, which is still okay. You can still do it. You can also use it for forecasting, etc. But the other way I just described, using the modern measurement framework with the validation, using other tests to validate your MMM, as currently the most popular way to do it in a more advanced way, in addition to your traditional way. So it doesn't mean you should not do it. It's just you should just complement it and just combine them, and then hopefully there will be more research in the future that we can find even more ways to do it.
Talking about the future, what do you think will happen to MMM in the future? I mean, one thinking is that MMM is only updated on a batch level or a daily basis. Could you ever see a world where MMMs are being updated more frequently, which I think everybody would find amazing, but depends probably on the update frequencies of the data that you can pull from the APIs of the app platforms. What's your thought on that?
Yes, and it also, the question is, does it make sense to do it? So even you can do it technically. The coefficients are not going to change like all the time. So
ideally not.
And there are some people who say it will never happen. There's never going to be real-time MMM. I don't know. Never sounds like it's a very long time. But maybe we don't really care what's happening in the next 20 or 25 years. We are more interested in the next 5 or 10 years. So I think the reporting is going to be more real-time, probably. So you won't see changes in updated models, but maybe the media is changing, right? And then you can still see some variations, some changes, because the way the input of the media is changing. Then with the calibration, we know some vendors are doing more geo tests more frequently, just to have some ways to calibrate more frequently. So you might do once a month a calibration or something like that. But
So,
even
sorry to interrupt there because I find this really interesting. Are those sort of geolift tests or in-platform tests? What is?
yeah, I'm more referring to geolift tests
Okay,
because
yeah.
they're more robust.
Mhm.
But also, and then they might calibrate this maybe once a month. But even these high frequency vendors still do like once a quarter official model updates. So that's interesting. Like clients sometimes don't understand what's happening in the background until we get involved and we really go deep and question them. And they think, oh, it's updated weekly. It's just, but it's just a reporting actually. Like the model itself just gets still updated maybe once a quarter.
Yeah,
or
but
something.
I mean, that's maybe also the difference, right? I mean, the reporting might be totally enough for everyone. You don't have to update the model every week or whatever.
Exactly.
But even for this reporting, I think it probably doesn't make sense to go real time, right? Because if you really go above all the media channels and go to out of home and stuff, you don't have the data. So I mean, you could do proxies, right? You could do something where last click gives you information about how out of home might work and put this all in. But to be honest, I think doing it more real time will just make it more complex, and people will less likely understand, because also the data will change on the next day, right? And backwards a bit. And
Yes, and even if you can do it, what does it mean for the execution?
Yeah, yeah,
how
exactly.
you want
How
to
often do you
execute it?
Can you
Yeah,
execute
yeah.
real time or not? And what
Yeah,
does real time
and-
mean in that
and
context?
I mean that's always the important thing we also always talk about, right? You should still use MTA for tactical things and very fast things, but then also change this afterwards, maybe once a week by looking at your more strategic MMM.
Yes, but I think it's kind of in the near future, it's coming
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
MM and MTA, mostly MMM is still an MMM from a method perspective, but the reporting, like there's going
Will
to
join,
be a lot
yeah.
of things clients are now used to from MTA and they expect it. And so the dynamic reporting will probably stay with us and get more sophisticated. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, amazing. So we talked about the future of MMM and kind of, where MTA still has its place. We in the prep call, we talked about MTAization of MMM. Yeah.
I wasn't part of the prep call. Talk about
No, I
it.
think
That's
you
what we
two talked-
what we actually talked about earlier here, Tim, is that what that means is that clients that come, like specifically, I guess that's digital native ones that come from a world of MTA, of Google Analytics, they expect dashboards to get updated more regularly. They expect to, So what's your take on that MTIization?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a term.
We just made it up.
Yeah, we just
Wait,
made
Oh,
it
you
is
two made it
a
up.
term
I
now.
like it. It makes sense.
It's as I mentioned, like if you see it from the other way around, MTA included MMM for like it was advanced way to make sure that some control non-digital control variables are in the model. And now the other way around, I think from the reporting perspective, having these fluent reports, we are now going to see MMMs not just being these static reports. It's already out there. Some vendors already do it. They already offer these kind of more dynamic reports. And you can also, some vendors, like where you can go to the campaign level, you can just have different views of your reporting. and
Shameless plug. Who could be one of them?
And that's something you wouldn't get maybe 10 years ago, but now it is.
Agree.
I had TV and MTA on one dashboard 10 years ago.
That's why you're on this show.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Great, a true pioneer.
Yeah.
A true pioneer.
And it's maybe also a hierarchical level, right? MMM will never work on campaign or ad level.
Yeah.
So it's really channel. You can do high level view, then you can go further down and go further from MMM. The more granular it goes, the less MMM it's, the more MTA it's going to be.
But that's actually an interesting question. Like, so Tim just made the statement here that I tend to agree with, that you cannot do MMM on the campaign level. But I also know that
Ad level, campaign maybe.
Yeah, okay, whatever. So not in an extremely granular level. And we've also been talking about next gen MMM a little bit, and specifically in Bayesian modeling, there's hierarchical models, of course, and you guys are doing that with Meridian. It is a hierarchical model. So what's your take on campaign ad set level granularity in MMM? Will we soon see it, or is it not even the right tool for that? Should we always be relying on attribution for that?
So I would. In this case, there's a new Google paper which was published in April, It's called neural networks in MMM. It deals with this from a methodological perspective. This is not really your traditional MM anymore. It really works with neural networks.
Transformers. Very cool.
And in this case, if you read the paper, you can go to creative level. Actually, you can go very down, like a down level, and use this to get you better understanding of your model. All of this is very theoretical at the moment. It's a new research, and I think we'll see what happens with this in the next several years.
I think it mentions it even in the conclusion part of the paper that it's probably not that practical approach yet, but in the future it will.
But it's also just a question of number of input sources, right? We don't have to talk about channel or campaign or ad level. It depends how many of those you have. Because if you only have 5 ads running on 2 campaigns in one channel, then you can go to ad level, obviously.
But then if you AI generate different creatives and you suddenly have, let's say, 1 creative per impression,
maybe that's not practical.
then that's going to get very difficult. Yeah.
Oh, that's I think we 1 minute over, but I'd love to get your view on this. Have you ever heard, because I read a paper, I don't know whether it was from Kantar, a white paper at least, they said that in an MMM, we always pretend that the creative doesn't matter. Like we don't usually include that as a sort of, dimension, but have you seen clients requesting it, or what's your thinking on it? Like, kind of include a qualitative score of a creative in the MMM? Are people starting to think about it? What's your take on this?
Yes, so this is, I wouldn't say maybe the top 3 requested, but it's definitely up there. Creative and MM. There are some clients, some very big CPG brands are actually very interested in it, and there are some vendors, they already have solutions on it and offering it. But overall, across sectors, I would rank 2 or 3 other topics higher than this, but it's definitely up there in the top 5 or something.
Great.
Nice.
Cool.
That's an amazing conclusion, I would say.
Yes. Any question that we forgot to ask that you would have wanted us to ask?
No, next episode.
Next episode. We do another episode. That's great. Okay, cool. Then, thanks so much for being here, Antonio. Great discussion, really insightful, and thanks for the audience to listen in. And as always, subscribe to our Spotify channel and leave some comments who you want to hear next, what we should talk about next, and also overall general feedback. Thanks to you two, of course, Tim and Tim. And then see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.